Let's start the stream and see. Please tell me it works. Please tell me it works. Please tell me it works. Yes. Seems we're live. Are we not? Okay. Welcome everyone. I think I forgot to share it on social media. Let me grab the link. Or is it already right there? I'll share it real quick, showing you how I handle social posts. I'm using a service called Hootsuite, which is for crap. Hold on, give me a sec. Okay, and we should have this one. I'm just logging into the social media service. There we go. Hoping, yeah, it works. So here's how this one works. It lets you share anything on multiple channels at the same time. So when you're busy, when you have to manage a few social networks, it's kind of necessary. There are a few of them. As far as I know, there's only this one that works with YouTube, that lets you answer YouTube comments and things like these, because I avoid to browse to YouTube directly, because otherwise I tend to watch a video, be it if some friend made one, like something new on Game from Scratch or something like that, I tend to click, or Kids Can Code. We're going to create a Godot tutorial from scratch, and let's go here, here, here. Okay, send. And how come I did not select my Twitter? Ah, come on, little bug. How are you doing, everyone? Thanks for joining again. I'll just check that it went to Twitter before we can get started. So I don't know. Yeah, okay, it worked. I don't know if this was clear, but today we're going to be creating a tutorial, okay? And this tutorial will come out on the channel next Thursday or next Wednesday, okay? This tutorial is going to be an introduction to tile sets and tile maps. It's actually a free sample I'm making for the Godot 3 course. I mean, it's part of the course, and at the same time, there are some tutorials I'm going to grab for the course to give you as, free samples, because they're useful tutorials for everyone. And it doesn't take anything away from the people who buy the entire course, because they have many more videos and projects. How long are you going to be live? Till the tutorial is done, pretty much, all prepared. I'll see if we do the recording live, because I don't think that's the most interesting experience, seeing me mess up time and time again. So here's the pitch for the tutorial. The idea is I start creating any tutorial by creating some kind of curriculum. There are multiple ways to make tutorials. If you look at Game from Scratch, with whom we made a video, for example, he has a style where he's going with the news. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, let's look for him. So we're going to look at few example. Game from Scratch. Godot is popular with him. We have Kids Can Code. So Mike's style is to go with all the tech news. He also makes tutorials, obviously, but overall he's going to explore different tools, and it's quite smart, because there are lots of tools you can use to create your games, right? I'll leave you a link to him and to Kids Can Code we're going to see after that. So Kids Can Code, on the other hand, the pitch is to make programming accessible to kids, but not only, obviously, because if you look at the Godot tutorial for children, they may be a bit less accessible because the game engine is so complex compared to doing pure Python from scratch. But accessibility is key for him, and his approach is often he'll look at what questions people ask the most. So he'll try to answer these beginner questions or things people really struggle with at the moment. That's why you have Godot 2.123, how to convert a project. There's inheritance, things like these, the rigid bodies, and the Know Your Node series, because people have often a hard time understanding the difference between kinematic and rigid bodies, for example. So everyone has a slightly different approach. For the two of them, it makes it so from one video to the next, it tends to, for Game from Scratch, you may have lots of jumps in the topics. For Kids Can Code, it sticks to, it revolves around Godot, but it's not always series, right? And on GD Quest, I must say, it's quite similar on the channel for now, because I don't have the time to make series for it lately. But as I'm working on courses, I actually create some kind of curriculum. So for this project, let's look at how it is. So this is the Godot 3 course curriculum. All the series that are going to be part of it, they are self-contained, and at the same time, if you can follow them all linearly and learn lots of things, or you can pick any chapter. There's only 3 available, and the 4th one coming in a few days. You can pick one chapter and work with it till the end, learn things from it, and pick another one in a completely random order, except for the 12th maybe. And on top of that, we have stretch goals. So all the series are defined a lot beforehand. You can see some will be, by the way, in the Godot docs, and like the entire chapters on YouTube for free. And today we're working with number 5, so I do have pretty much all the videos listed, and I thought about all the series, although when I'm working on a chapter, the order and the content may change. I always at least insert one video, change the topic for one or something like that. So before I'm working on a chapter, you may have, like I think here, you don't have too much in here. You have, yeah, it depends on the series. If we take number 2, you see you have a few notes, a few broad videos to cover, but you don't necessarily have the complete video list beforehand, right? I can add 1 or 2, remove 1 or 2, swap things around. So for the tileset and tilemap chapter, initially it was meant to use tiled, this one program that lets you create tile sets and tile maps. Okay, the map completely broke. What did I do? Yeah, so the idea was we were going to be using tiled, this one program, to create tile maps because it's very efficient. And now there are auto tiles in Godot. In the end, I started covering it. Let me open Godot. As you can see, very well prepared stream. I've had some issues actually. I'm missing some cables, so I had to swap the computers. But let's see, where do we have view repos? Dan, I think it's in there. Chapter 5. Yeah, I think it's I think in the end it's this project I was working with. So now we can work fairly well inside Godot, okay? And not having to switch tools is generally an advantage because you don't have to learn a new environment, new keyboard shortcuts. You don't have to go through the import and potentially export process. So now Godot can do things like these. Hold on, let me go on the new layer. You have the auto tile system that lets you create things like, for example, you have walls. Is it complete? No, it's not the complete tile set in this version. So you have a fairly complex auto tile system that lets you create walls that can be transparent and sit on top of a tile map. And you also have the equivalent of tiles terrain system that lets you do things like these. Note in Godot it's a bit particular because for one, you only trace one tile at a time. If you try terrains in tiled, do we have a terrain in here? Yeah, but it's the wrong picture. How come it's broken like that? It's completely wrong, the picture. Okay. In tiled, it's going to paint at least, in general, it paints a 3x3 area like that all at once. While in Godot, instead, you'll have to press Control Shift. I'm going to add the shortcuts. Hold on. Nope. This one, please. Yes, you can see the shortcuts in the bottom right corner. So you can press Control Shift, click and drag to create a rectangular area and draw a path this way. Okay, it's a very convenient way to work. Another thing you can do is Shift click to create lines of tiles. And you use that in conjunction with the fill tool. Say you want to create an area like that. You should really use rectangles, but if you want to create such an area of dirt, you're going to fill it with the bucket fill tool, and there you go, you get the path. The only thing is, in the current version I have here, I can't use the shortcuts. My face is in front of the shortcuts. Ah, hold on, let me move my face then, I guess. Is it okay in the bottom left corner like that? Sorry for that. Control Shift, click and drag for the rectangle, and Shift click and drag for a line. And you do have, normally you should be able to do G to use the bucket fill. Should be something like F maybe, but right now it does not work and it collides with the grid view. So you can see it can make for a pretty robust system, especially as tiled, the open source program, has some specific features to help you automate tile creation. So you have a system called auto tiles, but the thing is, in Godot you can use code, you can use a script to replace any tile. So you could loop through the map and check if you have a certain tile somewhere, and if you do, you can place flowers randomly around it or something like that. So it makes for an efficient enough system. Let me check. I don't know why this... I've had this issue though. We are still not in release, and I've had a few issues with the resource saving. Sometimes it breaks and a texture that was working, like an auto tile that was set up, gets lost. I don't know why exactly. Maybe I'm using an older version, maybe beta 2 or RC1 here. So today, we're going to do basically the first video in this chapter, and we're doing it last. The reason is it's really often the most important one in a chapter, the intro to tile sets and tile maps, explaining what you use tile sets for, how you use tile maps, what are their limitations as well, and what's their advantage. I have a few notes already, and this is the starting point for any tutorial. So we're going to explain the fact that a tile set is a set of tiles. Let me grab a tile set here on the system, please. There we go. So you have an example tile set here. The idea is to explain that you can use a limited number of textures to create very complex and rich levels with just a few variations, like the dirt tiles you see here, the grass elements you see here. Very quickly you can create paths and walls and anything you'd like. Let's try to draw a bit at the same time. So these are very powerful tools, and the difference between tiles, crap, I was on the wrong layer. The difference between the tile maps and tile sets is that the tile map is the map you are creating, the level, while the tile set is the set of textures you'll design in your image editing program, for example. Let's fill that. Alright, there we go. Remove layer 2. So very quickly you can create levels, use auto tiles in Godot to your advantage to auto-generate variations. As you can see, the flowers, you have to fiddle a bit with the settings because you can see it places a few too many. But yeah, on top of that, the tutorial will talk about the fact there are some templates in the course. They are open source, so you'll get them as well to create them even faster. It's going to talk about performances, because when you use, so it's not extremely important on desktop, to be honest, but when you use a tile map like that, the advantage is the GPU, because all the texture elements are part of one image. You can take that image and draw everything on the screen in one go. Okay, if you're using a single tile set, use 2 images, it's going to do 2 draw calls. So calls from the CPU to the GPU to draw something. And this is efficient memory-wise, because in general a tile map is close to a power of 2 texture. Right here it's 1024 times 896. So on the GPU it's going to be decoded, stored in memory as a 1024 by 1024 texture. And rendering as well, it can be quite efficient. The limitations of using tile sets. There's no big limitations as long as you're okay with the fact that you're working with a grid. So maybe we can add that. The main one is going to be working with a grid, and that's about it, I guess. Yeah. So now the idea with the tutorial is to have some examples to illustrate all the points in there. I'm going to reuse the Godot project as much as possible to save time. And on top of that, it's interesting to reuse crosscode, which is covered in the 8th chapter. So the developers are okay with me using their game to demo things. And they are using tile maps to show you, by the way, what you can do with tile sets and tile maps. Crosscode is a pretty good example of the flexibility it offers, because it doesn't make for geometric levels. This is using tile sets. Ah, come on, please. Can't I have you full screen? There we go. Pretty good, right? So you can have very rich levels. You need a few variations on most of the tiles, but you know, a few grass elements here and there, and it looks gorgeous. Although with such a level of complexity with height, you're going to have quite a few tiles to get your transitions right. While for a simple tile set like this one, just the path on the ground and all that stuff, it's okay. Now in Godot you also have this system where, come on, add a new tile map node. In Godot you have this feature that you don't have too much elsewhere, which lets you create terrains like these. Please, why can't I draw? Not using paint tile, okay. And lets you create walls like these. So it's one level. I don't have the full texture here, but I hope you get the idea. So you can use that to create a fence, for example. Right now it's a bush, but I think you get the idea. And this revolves around what's called 3x3 bit masks in Godot. Okay, properties don't work. Perfect. Which looks like this. So the idea is you're going to how can I say that? To create these auto tiles by using this red mask, and by drawing it you define the rules Godot will use to know which tile to place when you are drawing something. If I go back to the tile map, when I'm placing a corner like that, you know, if I don't have any tile in the corner, it just draws the end of the line here and a single tile there because there's basically nothing surrounding it. But if I add the corner, Godot sees this motion where it's going to the right and then down, and this corresponds to the bit mask we have defined right here. There's one block. This red element means there's one block to the left. This one means there's one tile down the current tile, and the one in the middle means this tile. This one is on this cell. That's kind of the meaning of it. Okay, that said, let's get started working on the tutorial. Once you have notes and you have somewhat of an outline for the tutorial, we're going to gather reference and sprites, as much content as you can, but not necessarily footage. At this stage it's gathering the elements you want to cover, and then you will record based on your notes. So I want to use crosscode. I've said I want to use also a link to the past. I don't know if I can for the course. I think it'll be okay because it's an old game. But the idea is with this one, you can find with old games like these, you can find the tile sets easily on Sprites Resource, for example. A great website to look at how games handle their graphics. It's called Sprites Resource. Oh, come on, YouTube. Do you take a lot of takes? Do you record a lot of takes and practice beforehand, or is it just one shot? No, it's never one shot for me. For most tutors, it's more or less kind of 1, 2, 3 shots. A lot of them don't do editing. I do editing, so now what I'll do is rehearse the notes in general, or cut the video into chunks that are short enough so I can do retakes, and I'll also clap with my hands to know where to cut. And then on the editing board, I'll remove the parts with the claps. I'll throw away some takes as well. And quite often I still do a lot of editing, 1 hour, 2 hours, to remove all the hiccups anytime I'm hesitating and all that stuff in the tutorial. So, A Link to the Past. One thing that's very interesting and very important. Let's see if the file is big enough. Yes, it is, kinda. So we have the map for the game. That's right, I'm going to grab it in a creator maybe and double its size. Let's see if it works in my image viewer. If it, yeah, okay, it's good. So let's go to 300, 400. Look at how they did it. So in the original one, I don't know if they were using transparency like you can see on this image, okay? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's not the guy who extracted the sprites who removed the background color. Because in general, back at the time, you would avoid layering elements because when you layer two sprites, the graphic card will render the background and then it will render things that are in front, so it's going to fill a lot of pixels. Like the transparent pixels on a texture, your GPU still draws in a sense. So you can see what's very interesting is you have a base tile size here. I can't see exactly the size, but let's say 16 by 16, and the tree is just a lot of tiles, and that's not a problem. In Godot, they've made their tile set system and their tile editor has been fairly bad, to be honest, for a long time. I think that's because of the decision they made initially to have tiles like these that take one cell on the screen. I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see it. So the tile I have here is taking only one cell. If I right click to delete tiles here, I'm not deleting them because we have one tile that's very big, that's larger than a cell, but Godot lets you have any texture sizes together in the same tile set, and I think that's a very bad idea. In any tile map editor, basically, you're going to work with one tile size, and then you have elements that take multiple tiles, and that's it. And we're looking back at a Super Nintendo game, and that's how they did it. So you have some examples of rocks that take 4 tiles here. You have houses. Look, it's a house. There may be some tile they're reusing for like hard disk space. They were probably, you know, simplifying the house as much as they could, not having 4 tiles in the middle here or things like these. But overall, the base of the house, they would reuse the window, but the door, you know, maybe it's one element, or is it symmetrical? No, it's not fully symmetrical. So you see, but today, however, you want to have a house in your game, it's okay to, in your tile editor, let's see, I'm going to grab it in tiled to show you because it's very easy. Shut up. Good night. Okay, new tile set, and we're going to go grab the source. I'll create a new folder as well. By the way, everything I'm explaining is also how I prepare the tutorials. Even alone, I may talk like that in a bit more of a focused manner compared to on a stream, but I will talk alone at home or in the office. Sebuka says, I think they use transparency on the Super NES because they use transparency color on NES. Okay, okay. I'd just be surprised that the console could render like 2 layers For me, that's the thing that would surprise me, because if you take mobile phones from a few years ago, a few years back, they are much more powerful than a Super Nintendo, and sometimes you could barely lay a sprite. Now that I say that, we're working in HTML5, so that's the reason as well. Okay, a link to the past. Hold on, I need to copy this. Okay, we're going to move everything down this folder. Open the tiles. The tile size should be, it looked like 16, although it may well be 32. I didn't check, so all right, looks like, see, it's I think it's 16 by 16, yeah. Is it? No, it's less than. It's weird because in width, like for the tree, it fits. I mean, it's the way it's exported also, because you can see the bushes, for example. It's made for presentation, but normally in a tile map you wouldn't have things arranged this way. Okay, but at least we have the tile set, so we can create a new map with it. Note there's also a tutorial for tiled that's coming to the channel. So using the tile set, now in tiled, where are we at? Do you have grid view? How do you activate the grid view already? It's shown. What? Okay, little view problem. Seems, there we go. Okay. Here we are. So let's have some grass for the ground. Whoa. Crap, the map has map's properties. I forgot to check. 16 by 16. There we go. Okay, so now let's see, it's all set. Because I'm looking to cover them in the video, it's also important to check the tiles a little bit. Yeah, there are some are offset. Well, you can tell it's not a real tile set. It's mostly an extract of the various elements in the game. Do we have some grass somewhere? Maybe I can, yeah, it's not very clean. We have some grass here. Nah, it's really weird. For the trees, you can see 16 by 16, perfect. But then for the rest, for the bushes, it's okay. But some things are not matching the grid perfectly. There's pixel offsets here and there. Well, it's okay. So, just to show you that in a regular tile map editor, you can grab as many tiles as you want and place them on the screen like that. It's not a problem. Just out of curiosity, will you be covering how to use Nen's tiled importer along with the tile tutorial? So I already did. There's a video on the channel, and I'm probably not going to redo it because it's as simple as you click import tiled map, you click on the map and that's done. It kind of does everything for you. And I have too many things to work on. It's the main reason. Like I really have to, because I worked on the docs again and all that stuff. Wow, interesting bug. Not clicking or anything. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of work to do, and I have to move forward. More importantly, so yeah, I think I should talk. I didn't write it, but let's add this. Talk a bit about how you create a tile set. This time around, I can't show it in. So normally I cover Krita, but I really can't show these things in Krita. I mean, it's not really fair because I do everything with Affinity Designer. Because for tile sets, snapping and precise placement and the ability to copy, paste, reuse elements, all that is very important. And in Krita right now for pixel work, the snapping doesn't do much. You can barely use it. Like you can only snap the center of your selection somewhere, while you really need to snap the bounding box. The snapping is really good if you use vector. It's just, it's not fully supported and implemented for pixel layers. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense for Krita, right? That focuses digital painting. But it's just, for tile sets, yeah, I use this program, so I think it'd be unfair to show you a program that's not designed for it and tell you it's what you should use or it's what I use. Affinity Designer is very good for it. One thing, I'll show you why. The main thing it's very good for is this. Let's see. There you go. You can see how I reuse elements. So I have lots of what's called symbols, and you know, I can change their size freely like this, for example, and it updates throughout my tile set. So that was mostly a test, so I think I made some mistakes, I broke some of them, but you can see they update all around the tile set. So I can create one leaf or something like that, duplicate it many times. It's very good. And for the bush, I haven't done it, but that was the idea. You can do things the same way. So I have, if you go, for example, on these corners, I have a patch here. Yeah, so I have these patches in the that I reuse all around the tile set. This one should be a patch. Maybe I saved it as a different symbol. I know the problem. It's because yeah, I made these corner elements, and these corners, only the parent instance, you can see it's only going to affect the corners in my tile set. But it's very interesting to show you that I reuse elements a lot, and you do that a lot in game art. So Affinity Designer has that. Krita 4 improves the file layers a lot, where you can reuse elements like these. The problem is it's still in the beta. When you do this, you save the source file layer, and it will only update one instance of it in your file. It's not going to update all the instances, so you have to close and reopen the document for this to happen. So yeah, again, hard to show you in Krita. Although they do have the grid, so that's a good thing. And I think when you select, you can snap to the grid. I already made a live stream doing a base tile set in Krita. Okay, so tile set creation. I'll talk about the base auto tile. So this is the basic setup to create an auto tile, and I should have a demo in the course. Otherwise, I'll find it for you, but so I had made this, but it's not too great. I have a demo tile. Where did I put it? Maybe it's in the videos. No, go to course videos, please. Maybe it's on this computer. I think it is. Yeah, okay. Let's grab this. I think there's some sprites I'm going to talk about which are on Open Game Art from this liberated pixel cup. So I talk about this in the tile tutorial. And I think instead of, I'm going to breeze through Zelda and Crosscode, but show these because they are very good. LPC tile set, or I think it's Tile Atlas. Let's see, LPC. This was a project to bring people together to create open source assets that work well with one another. So let me see this. And I'll get to your question in a second. But look at this, the LPC has been this project supported by Mozilla, I think, something like that. And it worked really well. They had a lot of artists work together to create open source game art, quite simply. So if you're looking for good tile sets for your project, you have this. I know there's the full Atlas. Maybe it's called Atlas. Let's see, tags, LPC terrain tile Atlas. There we go. It's the one I was looking for. Yeah, because I think the file is on the other computer. I'm in the process. I'm selling this one actually. I'm working on them right now, so. As you can see on the right, I've packed lots of files and all, and the problem is I forgot a cable to use this one instead today. Okay, so the Atlas, the organization is not the best, but we're going to see some interesting things. Let's go back to Affinity, grab you. And we're going to rasterize you and only keep. Wow, no, you don't do this. We're going to insert an artboard. Maybe it'll work better for you. So let's rasterize, and we're going to only select these elements here. There we go. Yeah, one reason I use this program is it's a very good vector drawing app with some pixel features. I'm looking forward to Krita's future with now they've revamped the vector tools. Really curious to see how it's going to evolve, because they've basically redone the foundations for now. It's not really adding lots of tools, it's mostly adding the ability to import and export SVG files. So look at this. We have the base 3x3 patch with the corners on the sides and the central element. This corresponds to what you have on this tile with the transparency all around. We then have corners, like what I call inner corners. So these are these 4 tiles here, where you have the kind of the element on the outside. I have to remove the outline here, but you have, for example, the grass on the outer side. And wow, how come? What's the matter? Okay, I used I didn't separate the stroke. And you have the grass on the outside, and you have the a transparent part on the inside. So let's see, I'm going to do it this way and that way. Have you on top. Okay. I'm doing this because this is going to be open source. Actually, I've uploaded it already, but there are some bugs to fix. Then you have 3 tile variations, the 1, 2, 3 tiles at the bottom, so you have 3 grass variations, and in this one you have some inner corner variations. This is one way to do it, and you also have the single tile here if you don't have anything surrounding it. For these two, they are not really part of the auto tile, right? They are kind of different elements. Then you may have tiles like these where you have a diagonal element. You have a tile in diagonal connecting 2 larger patches of grass together. Let's see, I think I have this on the dirt here. It's when you do it this way. You can see it's this tile in the middle, diagonal element. It does not always work. The problem being this tile actually matches 2 rules because it's surrounded in a sense all around, but and another way to build the how can I say, there's not one way to build and organize an auto tile. This is the basic version of it. I recommend having some variations for the central element always, but then you can see they have variations for the inner corners here, and in this one we have 3 variations for each of the edges, and then you have center variations. You have 9 possible variations for this middle tile, the base grass, for example. And here you have the 3x3 element. This corresponds to the bush in the example. So you can see these tiles. If I select this here, can I select all? Yeah. If I select these here, they correspond to this basic auto tile. And these, the bush, correspond to the 3x3 basic. Anyway, there we go. You get a sense for what we're going to talk about. And okay, creating tiles, tile sets and organizing them. How can we put that? Well, so tile set creation, 1 tile size, very important. I recommend using 1 tile size for the entire project. The reason being easier to produce, quite simply, and it's also going to prevent having too many issues with layering tiles together, like mapping 2 layers of the same map if you have different tile sizes. I have to show that Godot doesn't care about the texture size. This is very important, the texture thing with Godot. You can have a tile that's big, but that takes 1 cell only. So I had the example with the outdoor tile. And the problem is, the moment you want to delete it, you have to go to the cell where it was added. It's also added from the top left corner of the texture. So it's very inconvenient. It's very hard to place. So this is something that's a bit weird. So I recommend not using it at all. grids and separation. I'm going to show in Affinity Designer and Krita. I'm still going to show it as the open source option. I'm not going to show in Inkscape because I don't use the program. I'm not looking to cover it on the channel for now. Really sticking, I mean, being alone, covering one program is enough work. It's already hard to keep covering Krita, doing stuff for Godot and all that stuff. So one program is enough. Use grid and separation. File layer. I'm going to show using external documents in Krita because this is a very interesting texture. And it's a good opportunity to show that it's a very potent program. This feature has been around for a while, but I think that too few people used it, so they didn't really support it too well. And now, finally, it got some fixes for Krita 4, and I'm like, this is so good because Krita is really the first open source. I can't say that. It's the first pure image editing program, let's say, to support a non-destructive workflow kind of fully. If it wants to launch, I'll show you. Okay. Where are you? You're here. Okay, good. Let's create a new document. I'm going to export my tile elements and re-import them as Krita files. You'll see. So let's create some slices. One reason I use Affinity Designer, and that sadly there's no open source program that rivals with it, is this. It's the export system is extremely robust. And I don't see this happening anytime soon for... I mean, GIMP has slices, but this is not just slices, it's the ability to export as in any format to any folder. It's very powerful. I can export multiple variations of the same file at multiple sizes. It's designed for web, but yeah, it's very powerful. I can export to paths, for example. So I could, for example, write, please export to tiles, or textures, like that. And I can copy and paste this on all my slices, and I only have to name them. For example, this one is going to be grass, you are dirt. Yeah, okay, just dirt, it'll be okay, and bush. And if I export my slices like that, I'm going to remove everything else. So I can export these 3 slices to any folder. We're going to, where did I create my Krita file? Here. Let's see, we're going to do 1024 by 512. Empty background, and save this to desktop. What? Hold on, there's a... It's not the right user. What's that path? Link to the past. Okay. So I have to build these projects as well for the needs of the tutorial. And when you're recording, you really want to have everything ready. A quick tip with Krita, with their new file browser, I think you can change it, revert it back to the system browser, which I should do, by the way. But you can do one thing. It's you know, you can't type the path at the top. The looking on the side, it's designed for Linux, I guess, but it doesn't work too well for Windows. However, you can type the path at the bottom, and it auto-completes as you type. So that's not bad at all. Okay, so we're going to call this outdoor.krita. What is your file manager? Oh, sorry, there was a question. True. Is it okay to trace real objects to use them as assets in a 2D game? Sure, it's okay. It's been done for animation. Rotoscoping, for example, is the process of tracing over someone doing something. So, rotoscoping. There we go. And it's been used in games. There we go, the first Prince of Persia, for example. So you have some very old video shots like that. And that's also what made for the terrible lack of responsiveness of the controls, because you don't use human animation in a game. Animation is not realistic in order to have good controls, right? But it's been used as well in, how is it called? Another World. I think that said, yeah, there's been some rotoscoping from Eric Chahi, a French kind of pioneer game designer. Very impressive game, by the way. So you can do some of it, but it's not like you're going to have trouble depending on the type of game. Okay, it's not going to work well. 3.0, it's ready. Okay, yeah, it's coming. It's coming in the next few days. So Godot 3 is here, officially, I guess. Back to Krita. I'm going to export my files here to show you that in Affinity Designer. So I export in this folder. And if we go back to the folder manager, you can see it created a textures folder with my elements, bush, dirt, and grass. My slices. You can export layers this way, you can export groups, you can export artboards. I like having artboards as well to organize documents, which no open source program has, because it's not the most important basic feature you need. It's just convenient, right? It allows you to create multiple documents in the same document. So now in Krita, if you go to the layers docker, you can create file layers. I have a shortcut, Control-Shift-F for that. You enter the file path. I wonder if I can have a relative path. And you can decide whether you're going to scale it or not. Relative paths work, so that's good. And I'll need a larger texture. Let's make it 1024. And clear the bottom layer. So there you go, we're going to create three file paths, three layers, the dirt, and have the grass. So the point of these file layers is that they are files, they are not, wow, still as fast. These are external files. Oh, I have gaps in there. Hold on. Okay, so the textures have small gaps, it seems. But the thing they added, which is really good, is you now have a file icon, and if you click, you go to the file, you can edit it. Let's add some bright red color. Save. You go back to the source document, and boom, it updates. Not bad. The only issue you have is if you duplicate it for now, like if you duplicate a file, and it's still a file layer, right? If I have the source file open, it's not going to find it. There you go. If I do another stroke on it and go back, you see it's what I told you. It only updates the first one. I should file a bug for that because it should be fixed for Krita 4, but this makes it possible to create tile sets despite the fact that snapping to the grid for tiles, you can see it snaps in a bit of a strange way. For one, you don't have the guides you have when you use vectors, because you have visual guides for that. And the problem is it's trying to snap the center of the layer to the grid. Let me show the grid. Grid and guides. Show. And we're going to have 128. There we go. You know what? I'll make a crosshair layer to show you. There you go. Little crosshair. So you can see the snapping is strange. It doesn't happen with the edges of my layer. But if I place the center on a grid line, right there it snaps. Okay, because it's snapping the center of my layer to the grid line, which is something you never use. The one thing you use all the time in game art is snapping the bounding box of the layer. But again, I guess the day they'll have time to do it, they'll do it. Or if someone comes and does it, they'll welcome it. Okay. So I'll just show this in Krita. The only thing I have is the layers. Yeah, it's actually my slices are wrong. You know what I'm going to do? Because there's a cleaner way to do things. I'll just keep one of these slices, which has my settings, my slice settings, and then use layer groups. Like that. Create a layer group for, it's going to be dirt. You have grass here. Do I have everything? Nope. Let's have everything, call you grass. Hey, welcome. And then you have bushes. Like that. The advantage of this is once you have that, you can go to the layers tab and grab dirt, grass, bush, create slice. There you go. It's created for you. I'll copy the settings, so let me see. I'll pull you up. I can't pull them in the hierarchy. Interesting. I guess it uses the type. Interesting. Okay, delete you. There we go. The system here also prints warnings when you have files that may collide. It's very nice for this. I'm going to extend the slice. Okay, and the interesting thing is now it uses the texture size to generate the slice. Sometimes there's a 1 pixel offset, especially when you're working like I am with a you can see every cell is divided in 3. That was for the bush element, and because I'm using the 3x3 bit mask, and because of that you have floating point values in your textures, and it has a bit of a hard time sometimes getting the slice right, but there we go. I can re-export anytime. If I go back to Krita, yeah, again it's updated the first one but not the others. It's interesting. It seems to be snapping here. Maybe do the vertical line snap? It snaps vertically but not the horizontal edges. Interesting. Alright. So I'll place you down there and you'll be the example for the tutorial. Yeah, there's only this problem. So vertically I can snap you. There we go. Does the job. Alright. So the point here is I have my texture, my tiles split in multiple documents that I could go change, edit like that. The point of the tutorial is just gonna be to show that it's possible to do this. And now I messed up this texture. Let me fix it real quick. There we go. Alright. Where were we at? Okay, so all that should be good. One thing that's important is to note, in the early days, when I made tutorials, I would write a script. And now I only take notes, and even today I'm taking detailed notes because this is a fairly tricky video, for one, to prepare, to order everything. And because we are doing a live stream. But yeah, with experience you get a better sense for what to say, how to pace the recordings and tutorial in the end, so you don't need as much of a script. English being my second language as well, I had to prepare a script for everything. That was quite important. Okay, so let's close everything we can here. Rotoscoping, and there we go. The bush is some pixels up, I believe. Yeah. There you go. Thanks. So yeah, with crosscode, I should have some footage recorded in the project folder. Already, I think I'll reuse it. Or we can go download the game on Steam and have fun. Thanks, Aaron. But and if you go watch the first videos, you'll see it was not the case. What, do they have a male character? Ah, no. I was like, wow. Okay. Now we have that. What can we do? The video is also going to explain in the course. We'll use the built-in tools. No, I think that'll be in the intro video, because this wouldn't make sense for the YouTube version where you don't have access to the course. In those cases where I make a tutorial for the course and try to share it as a free sample as well, it has to be self-contained, to be interesting, to be useful, as good as any tutorial, right? And the thing is, it has to work in the context of the course series very well. Okay, it is designed for the course, but at the same time, I will remove parts I would normally put in there, and upload them to another video just so that, you know, it fits for YouTube very well. Yeah, I think I can't really show footage from Zelda: A Link to the Past. For a training product, I think it's not possible, because you need to have an authorization to showcase a game and a product, and in general, even for YouTube, you should have one, although people don't care about that, but you should at least ask for people's permission. So I do for the courses, and I work with indie developers in general. You know, I know that there are some games like Ubisoft is okay, for example, with you showcasing their games, but you can't do it with everyone. If you try with Square Enix games, if you try Nintendo, general Japanese, I don't think they're too open for that. Yeah, okay. Now the question is, how do we show everything well? I think we're going to keep it simple for this one. And I'll try to record ASAP. Because we're on stream, it's not the easiest to, like, when we're doing this on stream, I can't focus as well as if I'm working alone in silence, and because alone I don't have to think about everything, and at the same time I really have to record faster. Still got another video to do, and really the course should be done tomorrow. So on top of that, because I'm going to Japan in a month now, it's coming very soon. I've had a lot of work preparing everything. I've got a place to live. I'll be in Nara, so if you drop by Osaka or Kyoto, just you drop me a message. I may not always be available, but we can have a drink. I know that strangely enough, there are some Japanese who watched the channel and supported the course, and there's one person at least with whom we're going to meet. And there's Johnny coming, you know, the guy who makes the RTS game with Godot. Do you know this one? Hold on. I think I have to go on Twitter. And am I following him? Let's see if I try to send a message. Johnny, like that, maybe? 2N? Ah, I don't remember. But he makes an RTS game with Godot. He's coming to Japan pretty soon. Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to do it. It's an approach I use for some tutorials. Thanks, Arc of Dream. Yeah, it's in progress. I'm still here for a few hours, I think. Yeah, probably be. If we have time, I'm gonna try to. You know what? Let's try to do this. I've already done a stream where I talked a bit about editing. So let me try to prep this tutorial, and then the second one I'll have to do a Godot project with code specifically for the tutorial, and I'm doing it from scratch. It's not ready or anything, so I can show you that it's a more programming oriented type of tutorial, how you prepare this. So right now I'm going to record this, and I'm going to use this approach. I'll record Uh, trying to think of... I record some chunks with the footage, audio and footage at the same time. And then for some of the rest, I will record the audio and go record crosscode and some stuff separately. I think that it's best. Let's see. And I'd like to keep the tutorial around 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to, let's say, 7 minutes. Okay. Let's try this. Morning. A point, Aaron says, a point I feel is pretty important when making tutorials is keeping them short. It depends on the person. You know, when you go to university, sometimes you have 3-hour lessons. 3 hours seems too long for me, but the problem is people are getting more and more used to shorter tutorials. And the issue with that is, to learn game dev, you have to spend very long hours working and studying. And this wish for short tutorials goes along with the fact that people are consuming educational content as a form of entertainment. They get bored with it very fast. Well, in order to learn and study, you have to work your way through boredom. So that's the thing. I think sometimes a 1-hour tutorial for something would be much better. Well designed, well edited, not just a pure recording like a regular class. But yeah, I wish people could work their way through a one long video from scratch a little more. I mean, there's educationally speaking, there's room for short and long formats. That's what I mean. Okay, so we're going to record with chunks. What do we grab here? Let me see. The bitmax demo I don't want to have. I'll create a new document for this, but hey, I'm hiding the artboard. Why do you still show it? Weird. Okay, let's copy this and that. I think that makes for some nice documents. Okay, so you have the two artboards. Okay, it copied the grid. So you see, one reason why artboards are good in art editing program is the ability to have grids and guides per sub-document. It's very convenient again. So I have a grid defined in here, and there I have some layer that just falls on the master grid. I can define an artboard for it, but the grid will be, I guess it's reusing the settings from this artboard, so I can change it, and it's going to store all the settings separately. As you can see, like for example, the spacing and divisions are different from the ones on the left. If I click, I have 3 subdivisions in each of the cell. The cell size is different, and all that stuff. All right, I think that's interesting to start the video. Let's start with this. How do I put it? Like this. We're going to add the characters back. I thought I had copied the entire artboard, but it seems I didn't. Okay, and now one thing I do more and more is, before I would create kind of graphics elements and try to place them in the video editor. Now I try to record chunks and stitch them together more and more. Mariano, sorry, but we're not going to show like really how to set up auto tiles. Actually, the videos are recorded already for that. So the next thing I'll do is head to my course videos chapter, and in the image we're going to have a, do I put it there? Yeah, gonna add a source folder and store it in the chapter Blender Blender project. And number it tiles. Okay, so here I have a grid, and it has to be split in 2 by 2, plus I need the lines to be a lot more visible. Okay, so 2 divisions. And maybe we'll use a more visible color for this one. Blue, like Godot, maybe. I think when they're blue in tiled as well, I think I saw blue lines. I know it's in Krita. By default they use blue lines, which look very good, but yellow pops more in that case. For subdiv lines, maybe a bit darker, slightly darker color. Okay. The color is the same for all the grids, but for this one, I don't want it to show. Okay. Characters. So right now, very interesting stuff. Preparing one chunk, and I'm going to record it, and normally I would prepare all the documents for all the chunks and record everything in one go. This time around we're going to do things differently, so it's a little more varied on the stream. Okay, so got one fun thing to show you. It's warming up. A lot of people don't bother, but to make sure you're going to articulate well on a tutorial, you should warm up. Before that, gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Okay, back. Warming up. Warming up your voice. What's your vectorial editor? Affinity Designer, Not free. Not on Linux. Ah, come on. Please. There we go. So, getting ready to record. I'll move this down a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to go up to this size. Okay. Center you on the screen. Blah, 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 blah. The point is blah, 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 blah. Okay. We're going to close the other file. Okay, when I change the grid, it changes. Okay, all around. Okay, let's keep the default grid then. Grid and Axis Manager. Tint. Please go back to. Hey. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so back to swatches. Let's have some. There we go. Back to the basics. There is Inkscape with these features. Yeah, I wouldn't use Inkscape to be honest, but it's the vector program for Linux, right? But I would almost rather use Krita for vector if I was using an open source program. Even if Inkscape has some good drawing tools and lots of options, the UX is, I feel like working with Photoshop from 15 years ago, or a graphics program from a long time ago. Okay. Warming up your voice. You use muscles to make sound and to move your mouth around. So in order to articulate well, you have, or you want to warm up. Open your mouth a lot, very large. So the first thing you do typically is things like these, move a lot, make sounds, things like these for a little while. Open really wide, move your jaw quite a lot. It makes it a bit more reactive. Then you warm up your lips. You make it vibrate. It's going to wake it up. You should be able to already hear the little difference you have in sound. Then you have the tongue. You make it vibrate as well. Then go ba 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 ba. Open as wide as you can. La 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 la, etc. Then one of the best exercises to warm up your voice is the siren. It's this one. It's doing wee. So you try to use the entire pitch range you can have with your voice, and everyone laughs in the surrounding offices, so that's a good way to allow your colleagues to have fun, right? Then for pronunciation, specifically tongue twisters in any language, you want to do a little bit of that. So in English, some can be like red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. When you do tongue twisters, you don't read the sentence once, you repeat it. Unless you have a very long one, like, I think it's Peter Piper picked a pick of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper picked a pick of pickled peppers, where's the pick of pickled peppers that Peter Piper picked? You can say it once or twice, but for the others, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. The point of these tongue twisters is if you do them right, uh, they'll put a bit of strain on your muscles because they alternate between sounds that have you move something around. Okay, and with red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry, it has you push and pull the tongue many times very fast. Okay. Hey everyone. Ah, that's cool. Everyone everyone's talking. That's keep it up. In general, the chat is a bit is not as lively. Big Dev's asking, where did you learn these exercises? Have you had singing lessons? No, never. I just did a bit of research. How can I improve my pronunciation? Blah blah blah. So you find some tips. It's a bit hard to find online. I would say, yeah, probably doing singing and theater lessons or voice coaching. If you go do that, you will learn some techniques probably a lot faster. Searching online, actually you have the resources and how can I say, yeah, these are a bit scarce. Like, you will find articles that basically tell you a small thing and then try to sell you a voice coaching service. So there you go, some tips. And this, what I said is, it's not just for videos. You want to do streaming, you want to record a voice for anything, you're going to speak publicly, you want to do this. When I can't, like doing a conference, and for the open source conferences, we have lots of people in the room. In general, I'll just move my tongue inside the mouth and do some very low volume sounds in my throat if there are people around, so I don't disturb anyone, but I can still warm up a bit. DTR Go says, I always eat green apples before recording voiceovers. Yeah, that'd be one way to open the mouth really wide and chew through it. The visual shader editor, John is saying he'd like to see it back in Godot. I think it's coming back next one. Did you search specifically for video recording? Because you sing too. So I don't sing, I've done a bit of rap and hip-hop. Yeah, I searched just voice in general. I didn't search anything in particular. Milk is very bad because it tends to stick in your throat for a long time. So it makes you produce a lot of mucus, which tends to block the channel a little bit. Coffee, very bad. Tea is pretty bad. It tends to make your mouth a bit feel a bit dry. Lots of foods in general. So chocolate is a good example, but you should avoid, you should drink water, really. Or you can use herbal tea. Herbal tea, is that how you say it? Not tea, but herbs infused in water. That can work. Okay, with this said, it's time to record the tutorial. I'm using OBS, what I like to call open bullshit. And I've set it to F10, the shortcut to start and stop the recording. Thankfully, it does not start and stop the stream. We're going to see if it works, because sometimes it crashes when you do the two at the same time. Okay. Now I don't remember what I'm supposed to talk about, so let's put you on the second screen. Okay. I don't want to have my face also on the recording, so Please excuse me, I'll shut the webcam down for a little while. Gonna come close to the mic. I have to stop the music as well. There we go. Or I'll cut it from here. There we go. Let's see, if I talk here, am I too close to the mic? Am I hurting your ears? I'll try to record from here. Okay. So I can't see your messages and all for now. I have my notes and OBS. If I press F10, start, stop, okay. So, we're going to talk about tileset. It's a group of reusable textures. Does not render perfectly at the zoom level. Let's see. Can I get... Okay, I'm going to add some background color to the artboard. Devil's in the details, right? Okay, should slightly better. All right. Okay, good. Let's get started. A tileset is a grid of textures we use and reuse to create complex levels. You have one example on the screen. It's often tiles. Ah, shit. You're going to hear me curse, sorry. I'm a bit used to it. PigDev's asking, what do you think? I'll record and I'll get back to the chat afterwards, because otherwise I'm going to lose concentration, focus. Let's just see if I have the mouse here. Yeah, okay, it works. A tile set is a set of tiles. It's a collection of textures we... Hey, why do you... It's when I press F10. Ah, no, please. Stop the recording here. Okay, I'll press Alt. A tile set is a collection, shit, again. A tile set is a set of tiles, a collection of textures that are often of the same size that you use and reuse to create complex levels. You have one example on the screen. It's one we'll use in this tutorial and chapter. All the tiles are the same size, 128 pixels squared. With this, you can create paths and grasslands like you can see down here. They are all the same tiles reused ad nauseum. Okay, for this chunk, it's okay. One thing I'll do, I'll keep them short for this video. You'll see for a programming tutorial, it's not exactly the same. Yeah, I have lots of old chunks here. I'll just label it maybe 01. We may have more than 10. The map or level you produce using a tile set is called a tile map. In Godot, you can create them. No. Okay, so let's remove this one. I'm going to go back to the first one, make it a square. Okay, gonna do it like this. When you use a tile set to create a level or a map, it is called a tile map. Godot lets you author maps with any number of tiles you want, and with a system called Auto Tile since version 3. It allows you to create... nope. No. Not sure how to best put it. I'm going to select the dirt tile and show a path element like that. Okay, chunk 2. Why do we use tile sets? Well, for one, they allow us to no. Come on. So why do we use tile sets? For one, with a limited number of textures, they allow us to create complex levels. We can also reuse some of these textures. As you can see on this example, the corners are based on the same elements. Can I show this a bit better, maybe? I'll go grab one of you here. As you can see on this example, the corners are based on the same grass elements. You can reuse a lot of details and textures to create complex maps a lot faster than if you were drawing everything by hand or drawing much larger chunks of a terrain by hand. They require that all of the elements tile. That's why they are called tile sets, because we are going to reuse the same elements next to one another. They have to line up perfectly and to repeat perfectly. That's what you can see on this level below. I'm trying to think for this tutorial how to make things interesting, entertaining in a sense. Depending on the nature of the tutorial, as I said, normally I'd prepare all the chunks and files in advance and record everything linearly in one go. Ah, yes. If tile maps are flexible, they are not ideal for everything. For example, you wouldn't want to use one for a character or an enemy. Thankfully, you can design them in separate scenes in Godot and then bring them together to create the final game level with interactive doors, chests, and everything you'd like. Normally, the chunks I record are not that small either. But it works for now. Let's see the chat. Did the stream just stop and restart? My internet connection? Yeah, the internet connection is not that great today. I don't know why. Sometimes it drops down pretty low. PigDev was asking, what do you think of face camera and tutorials? For entertainment, I think facecam is a must-have, but for tuts, I'm not certain. It's what I was saying. I think it tends to turn tutorials into entertainment a bit more. So it can give you a connection with the tutor, the guy who does the tutorials. My problem with it, the main problem I have is it makes editing a lot harder, a lot less possible. And the thing is, a lot of tutors don't care because they won't edit the videos, or they will do light edits. Making slightly lower tutorials, lower quality tutorials, right? John was watching 30 minutes from behind. Okay. It's interesting because YouTube is telling me the stream health is okay, but OBS... Okay, the internet connection is good. Yeah. All right. Back to the recording. Not sure how to best illustrate it, but okay. Initially, games used... Nope. Let's restart. Initially, games use tiles for efficiency because you can see a complete tile set, a complete level. Because you can see a complete tile set, an entire level or world in your game can be contained in a single image, a single texture. And for your graphics card, it's a lot easier to draw from a single element because of the communication between your GPU and your CPU, your graphics card and your processor. See, typical example of something I'll edit out. I said GPU and CPU. You want to avoid acronyms, so I said it a second time again without clapping. I know that I don't want to repeat the same thing twice necessarily, unless it's the point of the video, for example. But right now it's not, so I'll chop it out if I don't forget. The main limitation, well, as you can see, you're working with a grid and in general with a single tile size. This is something you will use and you should probably use for the entire game. At least that's what I recommend. Now, another advantage you have is the ability to create rules to automatically place details that you can find. One of the advantages is you can define rules to automatically place variations inside your maps, like the details you can find on the road. I'm not bothering by placing them by hand. Godot is taking care of placing them randomly for me. By the way, we have Mariano in the chat, right? Can you tell me how it works exactly, the random placement? Because it doesn't feel completely random. It seems like it's creating patches in some areas. You can see this for the grass, but even then for the dirt, you may have large empty areas. And it's a fairly good thing, by the way. As long as you have the right ratio for the details, it's not that great on the grass. But I'm curious to know that, how it works. I often check back on OBS just to make sure that I don't miss a beat. So this was, I don't know exactly where we're at, which one I should delete. I'm gonna call this auto tile there. Well, I'll number them real quick and start 5. Okay, I'll do this and I'll clean up later. Someone's asking the program I use for recording. It's Open Broadcaster software. It's open source. Okay. What can I add? There's not so much to say about the very basics of tile sets. There's a lot to say in the details of how you use them, of how you draw them. But talking about tile sets, I think I've said all the essentials. Yeah. So this tutorial is not about using the tile map node, by the way. It's really an introduction to tiles and tile sets. I think I'm going to talk about how you create them now. I need to show also the gonna grab these and create a new file, I think. 3 by 3, please let me select everything. 2 by 2. Okay, let's grab everything. New file. Hey! We'll place you in this folder as well. Tile templates. I'm going to re-show what I told you about, that this corresponds to the basic template, 3 by 3. Yeah, okay, let's try this. Go back here, the grid works. Okay, talk about do we keep this one? Call it LPC example. Okay. Let's make you bigger. Twice as big? 3 times. Oh, come on. So it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. And I'll get back to the chat as soon as I'm done with it. Okay, should be good. Let's talk about tile set design a little bit. In this file, I have some example of the tile sets you'll find in the example in the description of using tiles with Godot. You have also some templates that you can find on GitHub. They are here to help. They are here to help you create tile sets a lot faster with Godot, available in SVG format, and you have the Godot scenes as well and resources to help you get started faster. The first thing I want to talk about with this example from the Liberated Pixel Cup is that there's no one way to organize your tiles and tile sets. Okay, you can place them however you'd like. In Godot, you use a system called bit masks that you paint on top of the tiles to define the roles you'll use to to define the rules Godot will use to place the right tiles when you are drawing. Here's our example tile set. It's made of one auto tile that uses a 2x2 bit mask on the right, some grass, very simple textures, and one auto tile that uses a 3x3 bit mask. On the side, you can see how this rule system works. You have the 2x2 example here. So mapping them one to the other, you have a central tile, that's the base of your tile set in the middle. You have the corners all around it, some variations for the main texture. Hold on. Not going to do it with the mouse this time. I'm going to do it with arrows in Blender. Okay. You have the center tile in the middle, surrounded by its corners and the horizontal and vertical lines of grass. You have 3 variations for the main tile. These are optional, but you can use as many or as few as you'd like for each of the tiles in the auto tile. Then you have what I call the inner corners. The inner corners are the corners that are reversed compared to the ones you have in the 3x3 grid in the top left. And in the bottom right, I tend to place the diagonal elements that allow for some extra connections and flexibility in your map. To author the tiles, I'm currently working in Affinity Designer. I reuse layers as much as I can. So if we go down to the tile inside of it, I have some corner elements as I've showed you. If I modify the content, if I modify any of the shape, you will see it scale and move. Maybe I'll... If I grab any of the shapes, you'll see it move on all the copies, on all the corners at the same time. I use that a lot for tile sets because it works very well when you copy and paste elements around. Because it's part of the background, art-wise, you do want some sense of repetition to make your design feel coherent. Okay. Next up. Moving back to the bushes, these use the 3x3 basic template. This is not a full auto tile for this element, but it's a setup you can use to create fences, walls that are thin or thick, and create... how can I say it? You can use this simple setup to create bushes, fences, very simple one-tile elements that will be on top of your map on a separate layer. And you can use the template above, that's a lot more complex as you can see, to create entire walls with any thickness you'd like. It's a lot more flexible, but obviously it will take a lot more time to create. These auto tiles not only work for top-down games, they will work just as well if you are making a platformer or side-scrolling game. Okay, for this chunk, I hope it was recording. Yeah, 18 megabytes. This is going to be auto tile authoring. How can I show it? Hold on, because this is one element. One last note is I really invite you to copy, paste, and mirror some elements. For example, in this style, For example, in this tile set, these three-way elements, I'm reusing the first one for... If you take this three-way element, I just copied, pasted it, and mirrored it horizontally. I don't have my shortcuts. I copied, pasted it, and mirrored it horizontally to create the element you can see on its right. Okay, that's good. Now you've seen I use a program called Affinity Designer for this because I'm doing vector work and because when I got started, Krita 4 was not available yet. You can create reusable chunks in Krita as well using their file layer system. I have an example here where I have 3 separate files loaded in one Krita file. You can see that because of the folder icon to their right in the layers docker. If I click one of the icons, Krita will open the source file. Obviously, I've exported them from the vector files in Affinity Designer, but the point is, when you use these, if you make any change to the file, like that, and you save, when you go back to Krita, the file layer will update. So you can create one corner element, like the one you can see here, and copy, paste it, and mirror it on the canvas. Okay, now I'm going to show how by grabbing the dirt element. Let's show the grid. I really don't like the subdivision system in Krita, but it's okay. It's just me being used to other programs and selections as well. You can't move them. That's true. Okay, so I'm going to copy, paste the corner. And paste it in a new file. Go back to this one. I'll erase the stroke I added. So you can see instead of preparing everything in advance, I'm doing everything in one go. But the idea is normally all these files are prepped before I start recording. So remove the subdivisions or use 64. So yeah, the subdivisions in Krita don't subdivide, but they aggregate cells together. That's the thing that's not as intuitive as it could be for me. All right, and I'll prepare this by having an opacity slightly lower, like this. Here I am with a single corner. I'm going to save it as a Krita file in a subfolder right next to my main tileset project. Let's call it corner, or maybe dirt corner. In general, I use subfolders or things like these. For this demo, it's not necessary though. Going back to the main file, I'll add a new file layer by clicking the arrow next to the Add Layer button and selecting File Layer in the drop-down menu. Then you can click the folder icon to browse and go open your folder. Browse and find your file. It should normally open. Okay, I'll do this. Let's see if I reopen. Now it goes back to the last folder. To add your file layer, click the folder icon and head to the file you just created. In my case, it's next to the main tile. It's next to the main tile set in my case, in the texture subfolder, and it's dirt corner. I'll open it, click OK. I don't want it to scale, and then I'll place it in my document. You can see the white background. We are using an unstable version of Krita right now, so that's why we are having this problem. But I can place my tile once, then I'll duplicate it with Control J. This new tile I can move around to create the other corner. Now I cannot, I think we're going to have some trouble, however, if we have this bug. Maybe it's because it's a Krita file. I think that's the matter. Okay, it seems it doesn't work with Krita files right now, so let's try as PNG instead, and I'll redo this recording from scratch. This has been the main pain point doing tutorials for Krita for a very long time. It's bugs and crashes. When I first got started with Krita 2.9 on Windows, it was very unstable. It's only gotten better over time. Right now, obviously, I'm showcasing Krita 4, which is in very early beta. So it's normal that there are bugs like these as well. Okay. It seems the stream is gonna get out of sync. There's yeah, the internet is really bad today. That's a pity. I'm not gonna be able to stream the entire day, I think, because otherwise then you get farther and farther away from the actual stream. We cannot talk in real time. Where were we at? Yeah, I have to. I have to go back to the files. Let's see, I should be able to delete from here. Create a document, delete, yes. All right. Here I am in Krita 4 with my dirt corner. I'm going to save it as a PNG file. You can see I already did. And for individual tiles like these, you can work directly with PNG files. You may not need complex layers to make them work, right? Although you can use Krita documents. Now, as I'm using an unstable version of Krita 4 at the time of recording, working with Krita files doesn't work too well. That's why I'm using a PNG file. So to add a file layer, you click the drop-down icon next to the Add Layer button in the Layers Docker. Go down to File Layer, and then you'll click on the folder icon to open the file browser where you have your main Krita file. I have a subfolder next to it. Try to stay organized when you do this. And I can select my dirt corner. Note that although it writes the full path here, it's probably going to use relative paths. So you can write a relative path like I'm doing here, and it's going to load the file just right. Press OK to add your file in the document. Now it's under the grass here, so I have to move it a little bit. So here's how you do things then to reuse the corners as much as you can. Note I have some shadow in this example that will make it not work perfectly when you rotate it. So it only works for the top left and top right corners. I'll duplicate my tile with Control J. I'll duplicate my tile with Control J. Crap. I will duplicate my tile with Control J. Then I'll move it to the right with the transform tool, use the T key for this, and click and drag, keeping the shift key down. Place it on the cell. Now I cannot transform it directly with the free transform tool, Control T. You will see the current layer cannot be transformed directly. we have to add a transform mask for this to work. Krita doesn't add it automatically yet. So for this, again, you go to the Add Layer More button. You click the drop-down menu to add a special layer type, and you want to go down to Transform Mask. Once it's added and selected in the Layers Docker, press Ctrl-T again to transform your layer. In the Tool Options panel, at the bottom, you will find an icon. In the Tool Options panel at the bottom, you will find two icons to flip the selection horizontally and vertically. Click to flip horizontally, and there you go. You have the two instances of your tile. So now the point of doing this is if I go back to my source file, the dirt corner here, I can make a change, save, and when I go back to my Krita file, you'll see only one update. Again, it's a beta release, but when you close and reopen the document, all of the instances of the tile will have updated. So you can effectively reuse one tile many times, one texture, to produce very complex tile sets. Okay, it's a long Krita interlude for this tutorial, but I think it's quite useful. Back in one textures. Okay. And so in this crap. Let's do this again. OBS. There we go. So in this file, for example, I've used it as a master file, what I'd call a master file, to pack multiple tiles or auto tiles together. I would typically, whoa, it's, where is it? There we go. Crap. This file, this Krita file, as you can see, I use it as a master file to pack all my auto tiles together, all my various tile elements that I would design, again, in separate Krita files. So I would have a tree of files with subfolders, each file in the auto tile subfolder, for example, being a project like this one, the dirt auto tile. And the main file has a reference to them all so that I can export my tile set in one go. Having all your elements packed in one tile set is very convenient because you just have to go to File, Export to save it as a PNG file and update all the levels in your game. By the way, when you create tile sets, typically you will create one texture for one environment. You may use two separate textures like they do in RPG Maker to... You may use two separate textures for one environment like they do in RPG Maker to have everything that has to do with the background on one texture and all the elements you will layer on top of the background in a separate texture, just so that it's easier to make the levels later because you can only use one tile set, one texture on one tile map node at a time. Here you have an example of me recording for the voice, and to have the base video in the background, the still picture, then I will layer in other recordings. I'll try to go find some RPG Maker stuff. I have a license for one of the recent versions, so I'll go do this to show an example. Okay, and the output is really bad. I think we're going to stop the stream early because right now my internet connection is really terrible. So sorry for that, but Otherwise, there's going to be too much lag. Must already be 20 minutes, something like that. Marino was answering the question from earlier. So the auto tile, it fills an array with all these subtiles. Okay, when you use one tile in Godot with variations like the grass here, so it fills the array, and based on the priority, it's going to randomly place them. But it's interesting because maybe it's because the priority is too high for the grass and the flowers, but it feels like it tends to aggregate them together. Again, it's just a feeling. Okay, so it's really random. The problem with the approach is that the right way would be to do a how is it called? Shuffle. So you create a long list and you make sure that you don't have that it's not pure random, that you do have you respect some frequencies from the first tiles you draw. That would make sure priority is respected even when randomizing the selection. Oh, my webcam, I can put it back on. Yeah. All right, so where are we at? Was there anything left to say? I have one thing to add. I'll add one thing about Godot's tile system. At the moment, it has some kind of flexible system where it doesn't really care about the tile size. It's not your typical tile set environment. Right now, I have one texture that's going to fit one cell, but the sprite is larger than the cell. And in Godot, if I click here, it's going to add this texture to the cell that is highlighted in blue on the screen. It's hard to see, but it's highlighted. I can add the same texture again on another cell. So the idea, I get the idea, it's that you may want to have objects like trees or large elements that are bigger than one cell, but you just want to place them once, maybe. And a typical tile map editing program will have you select multiple tiles at the same time and place them all on the screen, and they will all occupy one cell. So you can add a variation to one part of a tree or something like that. I recommend not to use this feature in Godot when we create the tile sets. When you create a tile set, try to use a fixed tile size, because this makes it a bit hard to loop through the map. Because this has some limitations. For example, when I place the texture, you can see I have to place it on the top left cell, and then it's drawn from there. If you are placing a tree, maybe you'd want to place its base on the tile set. When you are placing a tree, maybe you'll want to place it from its origin, from its base, the base of the trunk. For that, you'd better use a separate Godot scene, which will... I can't say that. But I'll showcase it. Okay. But I highly recommend working with one tile size for your entire game. It's a lot more convenient. It's a lot easier on the art side because you make everything fit the grid all the time. You use one grid in all your documents. You use one template for the entire game as well. Okay, not bad. So a little conclusion. Excuse me. With that, I'll record a conclusion for the course. No, for YouTube, that I won't use in the course version, maybe. Now let's do it this way. This is just... This was just an introduction to tile sets and tile maps to learn to use them in Godot. No, I can't say that either. So this was an introduction to tile sets and tile maps, nothing more. Did I explain when to use them and when not to use them? It's hard to say as well because you can use them. You can use them to build most of your levels. Okay, I'll stop here for now. I'll stop here in the recordings and I'll see when editing how it works. Okay, so I've recorded lots of chunks. I don't know which is good or bad, so I'll have to watch them again after the stream. That said, the internet connection, I see it's in the red since a long time now. Okay, look, I'll go have lunch. What time is it? Yeah, I'll go have just lunch. Take a break. Really, it's really bad. I don't know, can you tell me if it's okay? The problem is I don't know how much delay there is in the stream, so maybe it'll take you 10 minutes to see this. You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'll cut this stream, I'll go have lunch, and after lunch, I'll open another stream. Okay? So we start fresh. It'll be the same thumbnail, the same link will work. You can reuse this one, and I'll be live again in maybe 45 minutes. I have some emails to do and all that stuff. Okay? So